Hey guys, it's Chris back again. I thought I'd do another random console collection video, and this time we're going to be doing the Sega Dreamcast. And to start this off, I figured I'd explain my history with the Sega Dreamcast. So the Dreamcast came out in 1999. I forget when exactly. I think it was in the summer of '99 or maybe the fall. Someone correct me, but I didn't actually get it till the Christmas of 1999. So I was living out of Wisconsin. I was living in Louisville, Kentucky with an ex-girlfriend of mine's parents. And basically my mom sent me money for Christmas. And yeah, I bought the Dreamcast that Christmas along with I believe the first game I got was Sonic Adventure, and then I think a little bit after that, maybe a month or two later, I got I believe House of the Dead 2 along with the light gun for it. So yeah, anyways, that's how I first got the Dreamcast. I was always looking forward to stuff like Shenmue and obviously Resident Evil, Code Veronica, stuff like that. But anyways, that's how it started. Let's just get to the actual collection. Now, a lot of this is stuff that I got many years later, like even very recently. But yeah, I think the only original game that I still have here, well, I'll tell you, I won't spoil it, but yeah, I only have one original Dreamcast game that I owned back in the day because I stupidly, I believe, sold a lot of my games. Oh, actually, no. I believe I have at least 3 games, but we'll get into that. Anyways, first game, this one I found at a local mom and pop used game store. That is Air Force Delta. And it's kind of Konami's take on the Ace Combat series for PlayStation. And I believe this one has a sequel on the Xbox original. I definitely don't like this as much as Ace Combat. The story seems kind of non-existent, if I remember, and the controls aren't as good just because, you know, the Dreamcast didn't really have as many buttons as the PS1 and PS2, but graphically it looked really nice. It was just, it felt kind of generic compared to the Ace Combat games. So yeah, still, playing it now, it's cool to have a variety of genres on the Dreamcast, including flight sims, even though this is more arcadey, if anything. And then, next up, it's one I got recently in a pickups video. It's Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. This is also on PS1 and PC, but supposedly this is the best version, at least graphically. The only problem with this version is the intro cutscene has some sound issues, like some crackling audio. But other than that, it does indeed look a lot better lighting-wise, and the character models are much more detailed than PS1. But yeah, it's a nice survival horror game. Not sure if it's as good as the classic Resident Evils, but still, it's a nice game to get on the Dreamcast just because it's, you know, a good version compared to PS1. And I believe the sound quality, at least in the game, is better quality than even the PC version. Something to do with the compression. But yeah, the only issue with that, like I said, is the intro has some sound issues. Next up, this is a game I rented after I got the Dreamcast, but I didn't buy it till, you know, a couple years ago maybe, and that is Blue Stinger. Now, I do have memories of renting this, I believe around Christmas time or during the winter that year. So this game kind of has like a Christmassy theme when you're going through the commercial district in the game. So it always gives me a bit of nostalgia going through that part. But it's basically kind of a survival horror game in a way, but also kind of an action-adventure. I don't think it's super scary, but I believe the original Japanese version of this on Dreamcast was a little different. They made some improvements to the US version, which, in my opinion, I kind of wish they would have left one thing from the Japanese version, and that is it used to have Resident Evil style fixed camera angles, but on the US version it's over the shoulder. So I guess in a way that's better for gameplay. You can see the enemies sooner, but it takes away some of the tension and kind of takes away the fact it was supposed to be more of a Resident Evil clone. But still, it's a goofy game. The character models are just goofy, like the one sailor guy with his yellow shirt and like really tight, skin tight jean short just looks so gay. And yeah, the voice acting is really bad, but you know, it's still pretty fun actually. It does have the nice Dreamcast graphics to it, you know, kind of the rounded looking character models compared to PS1 games. But yeah, it's a little clunky, but you know, I've never actually beaten this one. I believe I got really far and then I would get stuck at a certain section, but maybe I need to get back on that. So anyways, yeah, I only rented this back in the day, only bought it recently. And the next game is, of course, another copy of Blue Stinger. Yes, so I bought Blue Stinger, I believe, on eBay or something, and then I ended up finding another copy at Goodwill for probably $3 or $4. So I picked it up. Hey, you can't have too many copies of Blue Stinger. Or as my friend and I lovingly call it, Blue Stoner. Ha ha ha. Alright, next game is another Goodwill find, and that is Crazy Taxi. Yes, the arcade port of the, you know, taxi driving game, and it's crazy! It's crazy in it! And it is crazy in it. I believe it had music by The Offspring, yeah, and I guess Bad Religion. I never really listened to them though, except in this game obviously. And yeah, it's got a couple new modes. I forget exactly what it is, but I believe, you know, maybe it's an extra course or something. But yeah, it's kind of a shallow game, but it's fun to pick up and play once in a while. And there was a couple sequels. I believe there was a 2 and 3. But part 3, I believe, was Xbox exclusives. I can't remember. But next up, we have this game, which is one I wanted for a while. And I'll just say that I did play this game, but back in the day, I couldn't afford games, so I was really into the Dreamcast Piracy. So obviously, you know, you do all this shit. Back then, you couldn't just download ISOs. You had to download these fragmented files of Dreamcast ISOs that had been, you know, kind of compressed down to smaller sizes. They'd rip out, you know, video files. They'd make the sound quality lower because these games were on GD-ROMs, which was a proprietary format for the Dreamcast. So I believe they fit like 1 gigabyte, hence the GD-ROM. But anyways, this is a game I played a lot, pirated copy, but I wanted to own it, so I finally got it years later. That's Confidential Mission. It's a Sega light gun shoot 'em up. And it's basically Virtua Cop as a 007 game. And yeah, it's cool. I mean, I don't think I like it as much as Virtua Cop 2, but it's still really good. And it's got that cheesy Sega arcade style to it with the voice acting and the enemy design and everything. And yeah, it does do some original things, like some kind of quick time events, sort of, where you got to shoot a grappling hook or like shoot a goo gun that plugs up a vent that's pumping, you know, poison gas into the room. Just some, you know, very shallow secret agenty type stuff. But yeah, it's cool. I'd highly recommend this. You know, it's just an arcade light gun shooter, but it's really cool. It's, good if you like Virtua Cop. And then this one, I believe, I got for really cheap at a mom and pop game store in another place I lived. And that is Chu Chu Rocket. This is a puzzle game. And I think I played the demo quite a bit, but I never really wanted to buy it till I found it cheap. And yeah, I believe it's something to do with trying to lead these mice through a level, and you got to kind of create paths for them. And yeah, it's basically a puzzle game, so what can you say, really? I believe it's exclusive to the Dreamcast, but maybe it's been ported somewhere else, I can't remember. But anyways, next up is Daytona, let's go away, let's go away. And yes, it is the upgraded Dreamcast version of Daytona USA. Now, Daytona USA had several iterations. It first was ported to the Sega Saturn, then a Championship Edition, and an online Championship Edition was made for Saturn. Then this came out on Dreamcast, and graphically it exceeds the original model, I think it was Model 2 arcade version. But, you know, it does feel a little different, you know, driving physics-wise, but I really like this version. It brought back the original music that the Circuit Champion Edition on Saturn was lacking, at least in the US. So, yeah, that's kind of cool. Although the original music is still kind of remixed, but it has, you know, the same tone as the original tracks. But yeah, it's a good game. It's got a lot of extra tracks. It says 8 racing circuits. So I believe the first 3 were, was it 3 or 4 on the original arcade versions? And then there was like 2 more on the Champion Edition, and then 3 more on this. But yeah, it's a very cool version. It looks really nice graphically still. And it's got that Daytona, and I wanna fly sky high, let's go together. That was awful, but I had to do it. Alright, next up, another one I found at Goodwill, Dead or Alive 2. I was really amazed to find this, and I believe it was in perfect condition. Yeah, pretty much. It's got one little light scratch. But for $3 at Goodwill, this was awesome to find. And, you know, the Xbox original version of Dead or Alive 2 is a little better. But this is still a great way to show off the Dreamcast hardware. It looked amazing at the time, for sure. And it has boobs. I mean, how can you go wrong with virtual boobs? But anyways, this was also ported to the PS2. I believe it was called Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. Can't remember the exact name, but this version is actually better than the PS2 version, at least technically. The PS2 one might have had some more features though, but this one ran a lot better and looked better from what I know. But yeah, it's a boobtacular fighting game. I don't know what else to say. It's kind of like Virtua Fighter, but not as good. Oh, I love this game. Love, love, love this game. Not as good as the original, but still really fun. It's a beat 'em up called Dynamite Cop. Now this is a sequel to Die Hard Arcade on the Saturn and Arcade, or otherwise known as Dynamite Dika. And yeah, it's the same gameplay, you know, the controls are a little bit more fluid, but I think the setting in the first Die Hard Arcade was more classic. But this is still really cool. It even had some free DLC, which was kind of the first console, well, one of the first few console games, I would say. Dreamcast did that a lot, actually. They had little DLC items ever since, you know, the first Sonic Adventure had it, and then games like this had it. But yeah, it actually had, I believe it was like, I want to say it was costumes and some other, I think like some weapons or something. But yeah, you can actually burn a disc that lets you download, lets you install from the disc all the old Dreamcast downloadable content. So that's really handy. So I do have that disc, and I was able to download all the old online only content for this. But yeah, it's a great beat 'em up. You're on a cruise ship this time, and I believe there was a rumor that Die Hard 2, or maybe it's confirmed, the original Die Hard 2 movie was going to be on a cruise liner ship. So people think that they made this game on a cruise liner as a follow-up to Die Hard Arcade, but then it just went back to the Dynamite Cop game. So that's kind of an interesting rumor. Not sure how true it is, but yeah, there's a lot of crazy weapons. It's crazy again in it, but it's very comical, which is very fun. I think it's more comical even than the first game. You know, you get crazy weapons like hitting someone with a big sea bass or something. So yeah, it's really fun. Great multiplayer as well. All right, so next up is one I found. I'm not sure. I think I found it at a Pre-Played store, which is a franchise. I believe it's in Wisconsin, but it might be other places. But that is Ecco the Dolphin. This is a 3D version of the Ecco the Dolphin series. It's the only Ecco game I have right now, other than the stuff I have on the Wii Virtual Console. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of a soothing game because you can, you know, swim through the ocean as a dolphin. But, you know, obviously it's kind of an adventure at the same time. And it's got cool, you know, Dreamcast type graphics. So it's a nice exclusive. I'm not sure if they made any more Ecco games after this. Never really a huge fan of the series. I only had a mild interest in it, but yeah, nice Dreamcast exclusive. And this is another really nice, formerly, well, it was never really exclusive, I guess, but on console it was exclusive at the time. That is Grandia II. But this came out on, I believe, PC back then, but then eventually came to PS2, but the PS2 version of this is not very good. The graphics are downgraded. I believe the cutscenes are pre-rendered videos instead of in-game, and they look kind of compressed. But yes, this is a great RPG series. The same thing that happened with the ports of this game kind of happened with Grandia 1. Grandia 1 was originally on Sega Saturn, but the US only got the PS1 port. I'm not even sure if Japan got the PS1 port. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the PS1 port also had downgraded visuals, just like the PS2 version of this had downgraded visuals. So, I don't know. I guess these developers just, you know, shined on Sega consoles for some reason. But yeah, it's kind of semi real-time combat, I'd say. It's very timing based. It's not full on like Kingdom Hearts or something action, but it's very fast paced. It's kind of like ATB Final Fantasy combat mixed with real time in a way. But yeah, it's very cool. These always had more of a goofy, comical tone to them, which was pretty refreshing, like something, I don't know, similar to Earthbound or whatever. Okay, next up, another game. Yes, this is the one I got soon after the launch, one of the main reasons I got the Dreamcast. That's House of the Dead 2. Although this is not my original copy. I eventually sold this game, I believe. But I did keep the light gun. It was I believe the Nico brand light gun. There was an official light gun for the Dreamcast, but the US never got it. But they did get an officially licensed one, third-party one. But yeah, this was originally why I wanted the Dreamcast. And I had a lot of fun with it back in the day. I had pretty much unlocked everything as far as I can remember. There's a bunch of weapon types you could unlock, stuff like that. But yeah, I played it to death, did tons of the different, you know, paths you can go through, because the House of the Dead games, if you don't know, you should know, they're light gun shooters, but it's kind of a horror themed with zombies and other monsters, and it had multiple paths, so depending on which scientists you saved or which ones you failed to save, the path would split off, so you could go all these different ways, and it was really cool. But yeah, this looked graphically almost arcade perfect. I think the only missing thing from the arcade version of 2 was some of the kind of the blood spraying effects were toned down. I don't know if that's because the particle effects kind of slowed it down, but otherwise it looked pretty much arcade perfect. So yeah, very good version, and was later ported to the PS3 downloadable service, and there's a Wii collection of House of the Dead 2 and 3. So yeah, and I believe the Wii version is a little different from this. It's got some different menus and some different options as far as I remember. But I can't remember. I think this game had red blood unlocked right away, but the Saturn game had green blood and you had to use a cheat. Or maybe this did have green blood and you had to beat it once or something. I can't remember. It was something like that. They always did weird stuff with the blood color in these House of the Dead games. Anyways, here's another, I believe, either Goodwill or pre-played pickup. That's Hydro Thunder. I believe this was a Goodwill pickup. I got it in a big batch. But you can see this one has the hot new sticker. And I believe, yeah, it's Midway would do this when they'd release an updated version of the game that fixed glitches in the game. So it was basically like buying a Game of the Year edition back then with all the patches on the disc. And yeah, I have another game in here that also does that. I'll show you in a minute. But this is a, you know, a boat racing game, arcade game, pretty popular, I remember. And nowadays, I think it's kind of shallow, to be honest, and I much prefer Wave Race. I think the wave simulation in Wave Race is much more impressive, and just the physics of driving is more realistic. But this is still fun, and I believe this does, yeah, it does have multiplayer, so I'm sure it's really fun multiplayer, but I haven't really played it much multiplayer. But I got it cheap, so. Alright, next up, got this game, which I believe was, I don't know if it was Goodwill, or maybe I even got this on eBay, I'm not too sure, but it's Jet Grind Radio. This was a Dreamcast exclusive at the time, but now it's been ported to, I believe, the last gen PS3 and Xbox systems and PC. It might be on some other stuff too. It's probably on phones and stuff. But yeah, it's a rollerblading game where you paint graffiti. It's cell shaded, so it's got that nice popping art style. It was one of the first cell shaded games. I don't know if it was the first, but it was the first batch of like the cell shaded game craze. Yeah, it might have even been the first. I know there was also Fear Effect that did it, and some other games. But yeah, it's goofy, it's crazy in it. Seems like an ongoing theme with these Dreamcast games. But a lot of cool characters. You're kind of, I don't know, you're kind of like punks that are, you know, spray painting shit, and the cops are after you. So yeah, it's fun. It's a Sega classic. I wasn't into it as much because I wasn't that into, you know, rollerblading, but still the art style was very cool. And it was fun to pick up and play. Alright, next up. This is one I had to get on eBay, I believe, and it's one I wanted for a while. It's a Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. And I believe this came out on PS1 first, but then Dreamcast got a kind of a upgraded port with like better character models, I believe, probably, you know, the filtered textures and stuff like that. So I think maybe the performance was a little better on this. I think on PS1 it was 30 frames a second, and on Dreamcast it was 60, but I can't remember offhand. I'm pretty sure it was though. But yeah, this is a great looking version. The only downside is less buttons on the Dreamcast, so it's give or take. I believe the movement controls are a little better on Dreamcast as far as I remember. But yeah, this is a great version. Highly recommend. Awesome adventure game. Awesome series. Who knows if it'll ever get revived, but that would be cool. I believe the final game in the series left on a cliffhanger. So, anyways, next up. Ah, yes. I ordered this on eBay, and I believe the price was $40, and I think it's worth a lot more now. It's probably more near 90 or 100. Maybe it's more. I want to say it's 150, but I don't know if it's that high. But that's Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now, when I bought this, everyone was going crazy about finding the PS2 and Xbox original version of this game. I don't know, I guess because that was the current system, and it was really pricey at that time. I think it was going for, you know, 90 bucks or something on those systems. But this is actually the superior version. I believe the Xbox and PS2 versions had missing frames of animation and downgraded sprites. I forget in what way. I'm pretty sure it was, you know, kind of compressed looking and less frames of animation overall. So this is actually the superior version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So I did my research back then and I was like, wait, this is actually the best version. Why does this sell for 40 and the other one's not? But hey, it paid off because now I only paid 40 and it's worth a lot more. But yeah, it's a great fighting game. I'm sure a lot of you know the series. Before the series went to shit, I mean, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was bare bones, but Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was okay. It wasn't as good as this. Maybe more balanced, I guess, but less characters. And then I have no interest in touching Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, because, you know, that's SJW era Marvel, and who gives a fuck about that? This is the real shit. This is all you need, and maybe the first game. But there was never, I don't think there was a good physical home port of the first game. There was the PS1 version, or maybe, did Dreamcast get the first game? I think it did. So yeah, maybe the Dreamcast version was good. I might have been thinking of some of the other Marvel fighting games. But I know a lot of the versions of those games were not ported very well, especially on PS1. Saturn, though, got a lot of good fighting game ports. Alright, so here's another Midway game that got an updated patch version. And that is Mortal Kombat Gold with the hot and new sticker. And I should point this out. It's got the red disc. That's one thing you want to look for if you want the upgraded patch version of Mortal Kombat Gold. Look for the red disc. I believe the other one was gold. But this is a port to the Dreamcast of Mortal Kombat 4 with extra characters, I believe extra stages as well, and better graphics than the other versions. So yeah, and this one fixes a lot of the glitches with the original release, the hot and new sticker with the red disc. I believe the music would cut out a lot in the original release and some other maybe stability issues if I remember. But yeah, I actually like this game a lot because it still kind of plays in the old 2D Mortal Kombat style, but it's in full 3D, and I like how the fatalities looked with like the 3D polygon graphics. You know, they could throw the enemies into a fan and then their body parts would fly at the screen, and yeah, it was just really cool looking, nice looking fatalities. But yeah, it was very you know, early looking 3D though, so it's probably dated looking, but I grew up with that, so I'm used to it. So I really like that game. I think I like that game more than the Mortal Kombat 3 games. The difficulty selector on Gold is way more fair. If you set it on easy, it's actually easy, and if you want it hard, it's hard. Whereas if you play, you know, Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, it's the enemy AI gets super cheap no matter what difficulty you select, and it just makes it not fun to play on single player unless you know how to exploit the enemy AI, which is not that fun. So I like Mortal Kombat Gold. I think it's a good game. Or even Mortal Kombat 4, but Gold has, you know, all the characters. Anyways, next up, another great classic that I believe I bought before the price went up. That's Power Stone 2. And I think I got this for probably $40, $50, and I'm sure this is getting up in price. I think this is probably over $100 at this point. I would like to get Power Stone 1 on Dreamcast at some point, but in my opinion this is the best one because it has, you know, 4 players instead of just 2, and the arenas are more crazy in it. A lot more interactions with the environments in this one. I like how the stages in this game would change over the course of the fight. Like, you'd be fighting on 2 airships and then they'd blow up and you'd be fighting as you're skydiving, and then you'd fight on the ground, and there was another stage where you're on boats that were constantly getting blown up, so you'd have to jump and swim to another boat, and yeah, it was just crazy. Great game, great multiplayer game. It's really fun single player as well. It's Capcom made, and there is a port on the PSP, which I do have, of 1 and 2. So I do technically have 1, but I love the series, and I do want to get part 1 on Dreamcast sometime, unless it's like super expensive, which it might be. But I believe this one's probably more desired just because it's a better game in my opinion. Maybe some people like the 2-player combat more than 4 players, but I prefer the 4-player chaos. Alright, so here's one of the games that is actually my original copy from back in the day, and that is Quake 3 Arena. Now, I believe my computer at the time couldn't run the Quake 3 engine, so I had gotten it on Dreamcast. And I believe my computer even broke down right around the time I got this. So I was using my Dreamcast for everything. I was using it for internet browsing, chatting, checking email, stuff like that. 56K modem. Yeah, it wasn't fun. It was the dark ages. But yes, I did even play this online on my 56K modem. Yeah, I mean, there was definite lag. Like, you had to lead your shots, so if the enemy was running, you'd have to shoot ahead of them to hit them. But I got used to it, and I was actually pretty good at this version. Not to mention, you're playing on the Dreamcast controller with a single analog stick, so you had to use the face buttons to move and the analog stick to aim. So that was a bit clunky, but I got used to it, and I was pretty good at it. But it is a good port. I believe this one might even run better than the PS2. I believe this version has some things better than the PS2, but the PS2 version of Quake 3 is better in other ways. But I want to say the PS2 version of Quake 3 did not have online play. Pretty sure. But yeah, this also had mouse and keyboard support, which made it even better control-wise, and it supported the VGA box, so you could play it at 480p, I believe. So yeah, it's multiplayer only, but it's one of the few multiplayer only games I bought. I also bought a couple Unreal Tournament games, but you can play it offline with bots as well, so that's no big deal. Here's another copy of a game that's my original copy from back in the day, and it's actually non-functioning now. It got scratched up, I believe, because I used to store my games in a soft carrying case, like a soft booklet type case, and it messed up like, I don't know, like 80% of my games, and this was one of them it messed up, and that is Resident Evil Code Veronica. Now, obviously, I have the PS2, and I have the GameCube port of this. I also have it on Xbox 360 and PS3 downloadable. But this was the original before they upgraded it as Code Veronica X. And yeah, it's the one I originally played. I didn't like it as much as Resident Evil 1 through 3 just because they downgraded a lot of the gore effects with killing the zombies. You couldn't pop their heads, you couldn't shoot off limbs. And the death scenes when the enemies killed you were pretty much taken out. There might have been 1 or 2, but they were pretty toned down. It's a good game. The adventure is fun to play through. The story is good. But yeah, they definitely toned down the gore in this. And this was the first full 3D Resident Evil game, so it was impressive graphically. It was built for the Dreamcast originally. The PS2 version actually looks worse than the Dreamcast version, despite having more features. But yeah, obviously I got it in like a banged up case. It's broken because yeah, the discs don't work. Ooh, and as you can see, it's like a two-sided spindle that holds it, and that's broken as well. So one of these days I'm going to find replacement discs and just use this packaging I have to put it in a new case. So one of these days maybe I'll get it if I can find the discs cheap enough and a case to go with it. It's kind of hard to find those clear double-sided cases like that though. A couple PC games have those though. Okay, next up, this game, Sega Smash Pack Volume 1, even though there was only one volume release, at least in the US. And mostly it's pretty bad Sega Genesis ports. Awful audio quality, slow down. But the main reason to get it is probably Virtua Cop 2, which is the Dreamcast upgraded port of Virtua Cop 2, which I did do a comparison video of. So if you want to search that on my channel, search Virtua Cop 2 head-to-head, or retro head-to-head. But yeah, the Dreamcast version of Virtua Cop 2, it was released in Japan as a standalone, and in the US we only got it on this compilation. Honestly, I wish they would have just given us Virtua Cop 2 in its own specific case, because the Genesis games on here are garbage. It also has a copy of Sega Swirl, which is a network, I think it was a network, no, it was on the, I believe the network discs for the Dreamcast that let you connect online. But yeah, it's pretty much a free game in a way. But yeah, it's on here as well. But yeah, the main reason to get this is Virtua Cop 2. It's a really great looking port of the game. Alright. Next up is a game that my friend Giuliano sent to me. And that is Shadow Man, which I've only played briefly still. Made by Acclaim. I don't know if they published or developed it. I'm not sure, but it's kind of a horror-themed, you know, action-adventure game. It's weird. You kind of shoot out of your hand to attack the enemies, but it looks like it has a cool atmosphere. I will definitely get around to playing this at some point. It looks cool. I believe this Dreamcast version is better, obviously, than the PS1 version. Although I can't remember if this came out on anything else. It was probably on PC and maybe on PS2 later, but I can't remember. But yeah, I definitely need to get to that at some point. So many games I need to get to, honestly, but... Alright, so this is a game I've been thinking about a lot lately, and this is actually my original copy of the game. And that is Shenmue. Yes, the legendary Shenmue, or infamous Shenmue, however you look at the series. I love this game. This was one of the reasons I got the Dreamcast, and there's kind of a story behind me buying this game. I actually sold I believe 4, 5, maybe 6 N64 games just so I could buy this, which I regret. Even though I love Shenmue, I shouldn't have sold my N64 games. But, you know, I was a kid with no income, so I did what I had to do. The only stupid thing is when I sold my N64 games to get this, I didn't keep the boxes and the manuals with a lot of the games. So I could have gotten the same price just selling the carts and keeping the boxes, but how do you know as a kid when that stuff happens? It's something you just learn from experience. But I did love this game. It's great atmosphere. I'm getting excited for Shenmue 3 coming out hopefully this year, but I have my doubts it'll come out this year. But when it does come out, I hope it lives up to the expectations. I know it's not going to conclude the series, but hopefully it feels like Shenmue. That's my main concern. But this game is a classic. It's more of an experience than a game. Kind of a life simulator plus a kung fu action adventure RPG type game. Great music as well. Very atmospheric, very moody. Cheesy voice acting, obviously, but that's what kind of makes it memorable at the same time. Hopefully this gets an HD remaster. I would love that with 1 and 2. So yeah, Shenmue, I believe it's a 3-disc game, and then it has a 4th disc, which is the Passport disc, which had some online features, I believe. And yes, I even have the Passport instruction manual. But yes, awesome game, very ahead of its time. Made by the Virtua Fighter creator, if you didn't know. So it's very Virtua Fighter-like with the combat. And graphically, it was really ahead of its time. To me, that kind of gave me a preview of what the PS2 would be like. Although, I don't think the PS2 would be able to run that very well, to be honest. But anyways, next game is Space Channel 5, and I got the lenticular, whatever, hologram motion cover, which you can actually, I believe, slide out. Yeah, there's like 2 covers, and then it just has like a bio about the dancer chick. But yeah, it's kind of a music rhythm type game. I can't remember. Was this made by the guy who later made the Res games? I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it's a rhythm-based game, and I believe it got a sequel, but then I can't remember how it went. I believe the sequel was Japan only, but then we later got the sequel content on the PS2 version, which I do have. But yeah, it's not really my cup of tea. It's pretty crazy in it, but I don't know. I'm just not that into it. I much liked Parappa the Rapper more than that, but it's cool. It's kind of a you know, a Sega Legacy game. It's part of the era. Now here's another game that I mentioned before that I got at the Dreamcast launch. That's Sonic Adventure, but this is not my original copy. I believe I sold this game to get some GameCube games at the time. I believe I sold it to get Resident Evil Remake on GameCube. But this copy I found for $3 at Goodwill, and unfortunately, despite the disc itself being like perfect condition, back in the day, now this is part of the Dreamcast history as well, apparently a lot of these GD-ROM games shipped non-functioning, and unfortunately this copy I found at Goodwill is one of the non-functioning discs. So that's a bit unfortunate. I don't know if there's a way to like use a boot disc to boot this up, but this is one of the games I need to find a disc-only version of to replace and complete my copy. But I do have this game on GameCube, the Sonic Adventure DX version, and as far as I know, that one's almost perfect to this and has some extra features. I believe there's some graphical differences, but overall it's pretty well done port. Although I want to get Sonic Adventure 2 for Dreamcast because I heard there's a lot of missing stuff in the GameCube port of 2. So, you know, I could postpone doing these type of collection videos until I have more games, but that would just postpone them indefinitely because there's always new games I want to get. Right now I'm pretty happy with my Dreamcast collection. Like I said, I still want to get Sonic Adventure 2. I want to get Star Lancer on Dreamcast and Power Stone, like I said. And there's a couple other random games. I'd like to get Headhunter on Dreamcast, and I'm sure there's others I can think of. But yeah, gotta find the disc, but I guess I sort of own this game. And I have it on GameCube. And then next up, I believe I found this at Goodwill as well, Soul Calibur, for $3. And yeah, it's a great game. It aged really well. I played this a lot more than I played Soul Calibur 2. Very fun multiplayer, obviously, and I'm glad Soul Calibur is coming back with Part 6. So, weapons-based fighter from Namco. I believe it's the Tekken developers. And yeah, it's great. This really is what helped the Dreamcast sell initially, but then eventually, you know, the piracy and the PS2 killed the Dreamcast. But this is a great game. You can get it on, well, technically you can only get the arcade version of this on downloadable services on PS3 and I don't know if it's on PS4, but it's on PC, but it's the arcade version that's missing a lot of the extra features that Dreamcast had. I believe. Or maybe I'm thinking of the downloadable Soul Calibur 2, but who knows? I get all that stuff mixed up. I know one of the downloadable versions of Soul Calibur 1 or 2 has missing content from the console version. And here's one that I got recently, and I showed it in a pickups video recently. That is Star Wars Jedi Power Battles, Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles. So you go through the entire Star Wars Episode 1 game as a beat-em-up style arcade game, but you can play as all the Jedis from Episode 1 and some from Episode 2. Even though they weren't supposed to be in those battles, it's, you know, it's a mindless kind of arcadey beat 'em up, but it's upgraded over the PS1 version in a lot of ways. The only downgrade is on PS1 you could break the objects in the environment, and in this you can't. But everything else is improved. There's, I believe, more moves for the Jedis, better controls, better frame rate. It runs 60 frames a second. Yeah, it's very cool. I believe it has more characters as well than the PS1 version. Ooh, yes, a very good exclusive. It's not that great of a game, but it's a cool exclusive. That is Sword of the Berserk, which is obviously based on the Berserk manga series, which I'm a fan of. I can't say I'm a huge fan. I haven't read them all, but I like the anime, and I read, you know, maybe the first, I don't know, 10 to 12, maybe more of the mangas. But yeah, it's kind of its own original story on the Dreamcast. It's a Devil May Cry style game before Devil May Cry was even out. So this actually did that hack and slash Devil May Cry style first. Although it's a pretty clunky game. It's nowhere near as good as Devil May Cry. But it's an original story. I can't remember if it has the voice actor from the American anime, but yeah, it's got some cool blood and gore effects. It follows more the manga, so he has his companion with him, Puck, which is the little fairy dude, which wasn't in the anime. But yeah, what else can I say? It's got a nice original rendition of the song Forces, which I believe was the intro or end credit song on the anime. But yeah, it's a more orchestral version of the Forces song, which is really awesome. Good soundtrack. I believe the anime composer did the entire soundtrack, but maybe he only did the intro song. I'm not sure. Trying to get these facts out there, but I'm not claiming that anything I say is accurate, but I try to be honest when I don't really know what I'm talking about. Unlike someone we know. Only like one person watching this will get that. Alright, next up is this game, Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation. And this was on PS1 as well, but Dreamcast got a visually upgraded version. But control-wise, it's a little bit wonky. I believe you would run with the analog stick and you would walk using the D-pad instead of just having like a walk and a run button, because Dreamcast had a limited button set on their controller. But visually this looks great, much better than the PS1 version, and I believe it's even better than the PC version in some ways. I believe, yeah, it says exclusive graphical enhancements and sound effects for Dreamcast. And I believe it was mainly you had a dynamic shadow on Laura, and the textures was an early form of bump mapping or normal mapping. So basically the direction the light hits a texture, it'll kind of look shaded on the other side of the light. If you know what bump mapping is, it was a very early implementation. It's not as good as like modern you know, parallax occlusion maps or anything like that, but it's kind of interesting that it was the first game with kind of that modern texture shading stuff. So, but yeah, it's a nice version. I got that just because it's visually the best version, even though the controls are a little wonky. And this one was from what I know, a kind of a rush Tomb Raider game, Tomb Raider Chronicles. And yeah, as far as I know, this was kind of pushed out as just to cash in on the series. It's kind of a collection of kind of levels mashed together. As far as I know, it has some glitches too, like even some game-breaking glitches. But again, it's a nice-looking version of the game, better looking than the PS1. But yeah, I believe this does have a game-breaking glitch near the end of it, but I'm not too sure. Alright. Oh, yes. The arcade port of this game, Virtua Fighter 3 Tournament Battle. And it's a little downgraded compared to the Model 3 arcade version, but still a really nice looking port. But it is pretty bare bones. It's basically just the arcade and versus mode. That's all you get. I don't even think this had like a training mode or anything. It's very bare bones. Dead or Alive 2 is much more fleshed out, but still, it's good fighting action. You know, the Virtua Fighter games are awesome, but yeah, it's not the best Virtua Fighter game. That would, for me, that would go to probably Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown, or Virtua Fighter 2 just for nostalgia's sake. That's the one I kind of started with. Well, actually, I did start with Virtua Fighter 1 in the arcade. I played it a few times, but Virtua Fighter 2 was the first one I really got to play on my friend's Saturn, and I played it quite a bit. Alright, we're to my final game now. Alright, how long is this video? 51 minutes. Wow, just under an hour. Alright, so here it is. Zombie Revenge. Now, I believe this is made by the House of the Dead developers. Maybe not. Maybe it's a different developer, but it is in the House of the Dead universe. It's basically a beat-em-up game, very similar to Dynamite Cop, but you get to shoot a gun in this. You always have a gun in this. You do have guns in Dynamite Cop, but it's kind of a special one-time use type of thing. But this, you have a gun all the time, and it's part of the gameplay. And you can do, you know, hand-to-hand combat type moves. But yeah, it's very fun. It's House of the Dead as a beat-em-up game, and you even get to go to the House of the Dead from House of the Dead 1 as the final level. So very cool, very good exclusive. I don't think this was ever ported to any other system. I got this really cheap, I believe $20. I'm not sure what it's worth now. It was pretty common, but it's probably getting more desired because you know, all the YouTubers recommend this game. It's a great game. It's fun multiplayer. So I believe this is one of the games where the blood is green until you beat the game, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, it's awesome. Great game. So yeah, that is my entire Dreamcast collection. Obviously, like I mentioned before, there's more Dreamcast games I want to get. But, you know, I've been thinking a lot about Shenmue 3. I've been looking into stuff about Shenmue 1 and 2. So I was thinking, man, I should just show off my Dreamcast collection. So, there we have it. I think I'm also going to be doing an Xbox Original Collection video coming up. I'm not sure when. Sometimes I think about doing a video and then it takes me months before I get around to it. Yeah, it's strange. I have like, I believe around 7,700 subscribers or 7,500 subscribers, and I only get like 100 views per video. So it's, you know, that's always the case with YouTube channels. You always get less views than subscribers, but that's a really low percentage. So, you know, it's hard. I would do videos regularly, like every week, if I had better viewer rate, but I really don't. Maybe I need to improve the quality of my content, do more editing, better lighting, better sound, who knows, or just more talent. I don't know. I'm just kind of low-key, you know, I'm not anything special in the YouTube scene. But, as always, if you want to support me and maybe see this channel improve with more content, my ability to do more content would hinge on having more money, let's be honest. So if you want to see more content, you should definitely donate to my Patreon down below in the description. But obviously it's not required. I'm going to do what I do regardless, but Patreon would definitely fuel this channel more to get more worthy content out there. Otherwise, if you're happy with this low-end version of my channel, then don't donate. Screw you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's there if you want to support me. If not, that's cool. You're supporting me just by watching the video. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Peace out.